Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. We are really glad to be able to share our research and project with you, and also really happy that our project connects to the ideas behind this Nevermind the Web3. And what we are going to share today is our project called biofilm.net, Resist Like Bacteria, which is a project about how to rethink our relations with other living organisms and how, while rethinking them, we can also create and also re-understand our technologies. So we would like to share at first our video of the project.
By late 2019 and early 2020, border closures and confinement measures abruptly interrupted the protests that were emerging around the world. This paralysis of widespread demonstrations during the pandemic generated the need to rethink and create alternative forms of civil resistance, while radically transforming our narratives, metaphors, and understandings on the living systems and their ways to break through, especially in microorganisms. Bacteria communicate. They have both interspecies and interspecies languages. The messages they send are meant to count. Through quorum sensing, they know when they are the right amount to activate certain behavior. Since as individuals they are too little to have an influence, being many, they manage to act unanimously and get more strength, resistance, virulence, swarming, bioluminescence, and many others. One of the most amazing collective behaviors is biofilm. When bacteria reach a host place and they know they are just enough to act, they start creating a protecting barrier. Biofilm covers them and lets them hide while they continue multiplying, so observers cannot know how many individuals there are. While they grow inside biofilm as a collective, they become 1,000 times more resistant. And then, when they are enough to act together, they do. But what does this self-organized behavior depend on when we are in action? Distributed communication. Biological peer-to-peer networks built as an independent local channel to communicate and for which the umbrella antenna can extend the range and allow many more individuals to be part of the biofilm.net. Bacterial resistance technologies, however, have been colonized by militarist narratives. Microorganisms are regarded as enemies, and the body is seen as a battlefield, a battle that today, they say, we are losing against the bacterial resistance. Biofilm.net, our open project, praises bacterial resistance in contrast to the reductionist discourse of war. We took one of the Hong Kong movement's icons, the yellow umbrella, and adapted it based on an open resource created by Andrew McNeil to be used as a parabolic Wi-Fi antenna. Other than covering, hiding, and protecting the user, Biofilm.net helps them communicate. The umbrella can act as an antenna for a mini server, a repeater, or a router, increasing the range while building a nomadic network that accompanies the demonstration in the streets. In the move, the network connects and disconnects organically. Demonstrators can join the virtual biofilm to chat, share files, and store them. We aim at facilitating the connection to alternative networks and at the same time acknowledge the importance of seeking autonomy in our communication technologies. Now, when internet censorship is used as a tool of repression on the part of authoritarian regimes. Self-organizing, collaborating, and communicating in a decentralized and distributed way are some of the wonderful actions of the living to break through. And that is what resist like bacteria means.
Hi everyone. During 2020, Natalia and I start to thinking of these microorganisms and the relationship between these living things and our human. And when we more deeply look into these living organisms, the more amazed we were because they have so many amazing technologies or behavior, we can say. The one of the most inspiring things is called biofilm. Like we had in the video, that it is one of these metrics, this bacteria, they will create this covering the film or amount of all of this collective microbiomes. And when they are reaching an amount of the whole bacteria numbers, they will enable the whole collective to act. But how can we think of this bacteria behavior to our project? There is another called current sensing. Current sensing is the key mechanism in this biofilm, or the key mechanism in this bacterial communication, that they can sense the total amount, or they can sense how many they are in a crowd or in a collective. So when they are sensing each other's, they will sensing with chemical, and they know how many they are, and they can decide the next step they can act. It's kind of a democracy way, or it's a collective way to act. And next is the bacteria resistant to antibiotics.
Yeah, so what happens with these behaviors is that when they make bacteria stronger, they also help them to develop new ways to resist to some kind of treatments and some kind of control that we humans would like to have over them. And this is something really relevant now for the medical society. I mean, for the whole humanity, but I mean, medical society is acknowledging it and making us understand what are we facing now. And it is about bacteria developing resistance to the antibiotics that we have created. Over 100 years ago. And this resistance is due also because of the misuse that we do of those antibiotics, especially in the meat industry. And what we find here in this context is that the narratives around this are so much anthropocentric, and that they always stage bacteria as enemies. Microorganisms are usually understood, if not important, they are understood as enemies, as we experienced during the pandemic with the COVID. And now the whole narratives around it are like war narratives, like we close borders, for instance, or we develop, like in terms of what the kind of articles and the kind of news that we see about bacterial resistance, we develop weapons against them and so on. And this is what we want to address with our project. And it's about the constitutive power of scientific narratives and how actually when we discover in science, we are, and also in other knowledge forms, we are not just discovering something that is out there, but we are creating the world around us. And we think that these kind of narratives that we have now that are anthropocentric and that has brought us to this point in which this absurd narrative or this absurd understanding of us against bacteria, bring us to this kind of crisis that we have. And actually, we understand, and as Jung presented, that bacteria that has been long before us here, and they have developed amazing technologies to become the biosphere of which we are part now. So it's not a single bacteria, it's never a single bacteria, but it's a collective, a huge collective. Actually, Lynn Margulis called them a superorganism that is this whole biosphere and biodiversity that we know now. And so while changing also these narratives and these understandings, we can also change the relations to other living organisms and the ones considered non-living up to now. And that also takes part in the way we develop our technologies. Can we go to the next one, please? And this is one of our main reference or one of the first ones that we met when we were researching these topics, and is how to develop biology-inspired computing. Actually, this proposal about biological peer-to-peer networks goes a bit more about how to develop biological computing with bacteria as the components of those computers, of those network computers. But for us, it's also important, and personally, I think that these metaphors that goes from the computer science to the biology, thinking as organisms as computers, should be like turned the other way and start thinking our technologies and our computing as living. And this is also what we include in a way in our concept of the project.
And when we researching this biological computing and maybe the possibilities of this biological communication that we can interpret it in our communication technologies, we found there are so much similarities between this bacteria and also the demonstration where we can say social movement or even protest. Like in these photos on the right side is the Pride parade in Taiwan in 2016 or 15. And on the left side is the biofilm, the photo of the microscope of biofilm itself. You can see the covering of the individual bacteria that can create a film to protect them. And also another quite famous protest strategy called Be Water, which is be wild use in Hong Kong protests, and also inspired many other different locations and many other different regions that people protest in the same way with this decentralized, anonymous, and quite a lot of digital communication during these organizations. And we can see that in Hong Kong protests that people declaring that they are not having one central commanders or one central organization to manage or organize all the activities, but people react like water, or like we can say like bacteria that is highly decentralized and highly autonomous, that people decide during different like online polling and also different digital platforms like Liandan, and also a lot of Telegram groups, and people hiding themselves to avoiding this expose of identity to the camera surveillance, CCTVs, and also from the police. And these strategies we can see also in the Southeast Asia, like Cambodia, like Thailand, and also we can see some cases also in US, like in the Black Lives Matters protest in 2019 and 2020. And also we can see they influence a lot in Latin America, and also Natalia, maybe you can introduce the example in
I
Colombia.
think that's nice to mention when talking about these connections through digital and how we can get closer or further with them, that we actually started working online because we were at the university, but while the lessons were online, we will stay in our regions, and that allowed us to be connected also to our local context. And I think that this project emerged from the dialogues that we had through this communication media, and that allowed us to share our experiences on each side. Yes. So what Jung just shared about Hong Kong, and at the same time, I was sharing with her what was happening in Colombia, that was a really, really hard time for social movements, they started in 2019. We are actually now in 3 years of the beginning of this movement, the 21 of November, the 21N. So this weekend actually. And they began there, but then with the pandemic, they got stopped. But we knew that there was a lot of energy that was coming out at some point, and that actually the reasons that bring people to the streets, which is mostly about social inequality here in Colombia, but in the rest of Latin America as well, they got worse during the pandemic restrictions. So people had to go to the street, and there was this really awful situation where the police murdered Javier Ordóñez because he was outside not following the restrictions. And then the protest the next day, during the protest that occurred the next day against this police brutality, there was a massacre by the police where 13 Jones were killed because they were protesting against this. And so we kept still a lot of energy to be expressed in the streets, to be expressed this kind of this desire to be able to behave as living systems. And then we had in 2021 a huge social outbreak that lasted more than 5 months, and even today is still there. That started in the 28th of April, the 28A. And what was really important for these demonstrations was the real networks, not necessarily the digital ones, but the real networks behind the protests that allowed people to resist for such a long time. And this is all about collaboration. And for that, art played a really important role for keeping people together and as an excuse to get together and to create as a process of, caring about each other. We can go to the next one, please.
And also we have a lately quite huge example that happens now still in Iran, which called Masha Amini protest. It's also caused by a police brutality that because a woman didn't wear this covering, and people go to the street to against this, the violence from the system. And we can see the local government using a really, we can say, efficient way to control this protest, that the government shut down the local internet from September, the middle of September. And we can see in the graphic that you can see the dramatic drop down of the connectivity of the region local network. And also quite the opposite example is that the situation in Ukraine. We all know that in Ukraine there is a war happens now, but many people researching about the resilience of the internet in Ukraine, that actually we didn't hear so much about there is an internet shutdown in Ukraine. There is a awareness, and there is also the risk of internet shutdown, but it haven't happened now, because you can see on the left side, Ukraine is fortunately the top 4 least concentrated market, where we can say internet providers of end users in the world. Which means that they have many different internet providers, which is not the mega company, but there are many fews. And also in the infrastructure architecture, that they are not also using the same cables or the same station to collect or transfer this data. And in also another way, that in Ukraine, there are many these volunteers, they are repairing these cables and also repairing this antenna, collaborate with this internet service provider. So we can see now they are still having this, the basic use of internet condition. And also another famous thing is like Elon Musk donates 20,000 of this Starlink device to Ukraine. But actually for me, it's like they are still quite centralized because Musk just declared that they are not gonna pay for the rest of the usage of the Starlink device because the U.S. government paying the bill before, and now most of the device is not functional anymore because nobody paid the bills now. And another famous another situations in Russia, maybe Natalia can share with us.
Yes. Well, we had some conversations with different communities. Someone shared with us this process, which we bring here because it's an analog version of these creating networks and connections. And it's this activity that people go to the street and show the blank paper. And what we were told there is that they do it so they can, like, someone can approach and then they can ask about what is happening, and then they can have a conversation about the context to avoid this digital communication. And also this has a reference in a previous movement, anarchist social movement in the Netherlands. And what they do also is that they expose in a way through the media how absurd is this kind of repression of the states, right? That they get arrested because they are holding this paper. So for us, what we would like to mention here and share is that we know that how diverse these strategies are and how important it is that they are diverse and they are situated. And so it's not about creating one central solution. Our project is also about creating a product or a service that is there to be implemented and that can be solving a problem, but it's about getting together around these topics and acknowledging the importance of co-creating in the communities that need this kind of media, co-creating them and finding alternatives to the centralized options that we have now. And also that the technologies for the resistance, like these bacteria technologies that we are talking about, is not only the digital technologies or the most advanced ones that we can create, but it's actually the collaboration itself that holds together the networks to be resilient and to resist. And that's why we have thought of our project to be a co-creation process, and we developed it through co-creation workshops as well. So the first prototype we created in the new media class at UDK, where we were studying together, and that was based on the tutorial by Andrew McNeil that we shared before also. And the next one, then we called for a community to work with us. That's Mutante in Bogota. So we said, hey, we have this idea, let's prototype it together. And what we created there was one version of the server with the Pirate Box, a well-known open source hacked router. And yeah, tried in the streets in Bogota. And then we tested again, yes, the next. We tested this server in the anarchist book fair as well in Bogota. That was at the beginning of this year. And we tried how to test the umbrella and also other ways to build the cover, the metal mesh cover that creates this antenna. And most recently, we have created another one.
Most recently, the latest version of the that we try to use Raspberry Pi as a local server and sharing hotspot with this antenna structure. And also we attach a solar power bank to provide the power. So it's a portable station that can sharing hotspot to provide this connection for people to join with their own device, such like a mobile phone or their laptop. They can access this local server, and we have a matrix chat room that is also an open source chat room system that people can sharing their data, sharing their messages, images, videos when they connect to the hotspot. And we also have a lot of support by the media and hosting, which was based in Utica. And we actually thinking of like the more we develop this, or we don't say developing actually, because we are prototyping with each iteration, because we collaborate with different communities, with different people that they are like activists, they are hackers, they are also biologists, sociologists, and they are just normal people who interested in and associated with these strategies of resistance. And we now know that we are all based on this open source or open process or even open discussions that the technology things is not the most important things in this network, but it's the people behind the network. So we start to do this resist like bacteria encounter that it's a workshop. We invite different communities. Some of them are international communities, some of them are local communities to share their own experience and knowledge of how they resist. And now, fortunately, we had already 3 workshops in different countries. The first one was in September in Oslo Electronica in Australia. And another 2 was just finished last week. The first is Video Sonica Festival in Cali. Another is Taiwan Arts Biennial, and also in Taichung. And in this encounter, there are many different communities.
Yeah, what we have the chance in this encounter, what was really nice for us, is we got to know a huge amount of diverse strategies, and we had a really interesting conversations, even on how to create communities for those who were interested in like helping that this happens, or that this emerge in their own context. So we heard experiences from Japan who shared with us that they felt that this was difficult to do there, and they got actually connected during this kind of encounter. So I think that was amazing. And also about how even in some places these kind of digital things are not needed or are not reachable because they don't have access to I don't know, even mobile phones or so, and how we can find analog versions for that. And I think that for us, this continues to be about how to create these new narratives that brings us closer to lifelike behavior, and that we can appreciate how these technologies of the bacteria, that we think that they are more simple because they are in the beginning of this tree of evolution. They are actually amazing technologies, and that we can learn from them, and that we can now be more open to design and create technologies that enable life and that embrace the diversification of life itself. And that's our invitation with the resist-like bacteria. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for letting us being part of this conference. And if you have any further questions or comments, or just want to take a look more, please maybe just visit our website, biofilm.net.
OK， 好，不好意思。好，非常感谢2位的这个分享，我觉得非常精彩，尤其是 在你们就是真正做这种原型，并且真的去这个在各种各样不同社群里面进行实验，我觉得这样子的这种经历是非常非常宝贵的。也对，因为其实我们在 Internet Archive。我们之前办过非常多的这个就 DWeb 的活动。等一下，其实 Booster 也会介绍一下我们做的这个 DWeb 这个运动。那其实有非常非常多的社群，或者说非常非常多的其实一些各种各样的这种技术背景的人，其实也都尝试过去做这么一个 Mesh Network，但好像从来没有一群人真的把 Mesh Network 装到一个伞柄上，让他们真的可以放到一个这种具体的场景下，比如说 protesting 这样的场景下进行去实验。那我觉得也是给我们一个非常好的例子。那因为其实徐荣他就对，这个可能需要那个回答一下，就是我们那个 English channel 还 work 吗？对，然后非常感谢，就是因为徐荣其实在柏林嘛，然后现在也是非常晚了，所以我们可能需要先他来这个回答一些问题，然后 Natalia 其实如果 OK 的话，其实可以，说不定可以留到我们最后的那个讨论之中。那我们现在在 Slido 上看到了一系列问题，那我觉得我们就挑那个最popular 的3个，或者说几个，我们让你一起来回答。那首先其实是说，我们就一起来吧。那看一下，就是麻烦你就这个尝试回答一下，就是现在有没有哪些具体的社群采用了这个 network？当然了，刚刚其实我们已经讨论过一些了这个具体场景。那我觉得更重要的是说，在与这些社群，或者说将要与某些社群进行合作的这个情况之下，那你们有没有一些经验可以说，在与他们合作啊，然后协商的这种过程中，有没有什么比较好有趣的这种碰撞或趣事？那而且我觉得刚刚其实徐荣也提到了，就是技术其实不是最困难的东西，那最困难的东西是什么呢？是如何促进人与人联合起来吗？那我觉得是不是可以麻烦徐荣和 Natalia 可以一起来回答一下这个问题，因为还有一点长。Sorry，OK。
Yeah. Okay, maybe I just repeat the question in English. And the most popular question on Slido now is there any specific communities
那
now
么现
already
在
implement
是不是
this
有社
umbrella
区
network?
在执行这样的一个活动呢？
So I can share a little story of this question.
我来分享一下。
Really emphasizing that we are not service provider. We are not
我们强调，我们不是一个这个服务器的提供商。那么我们不能够就是把这个作为一个技术给人们。在9月中旬，
he's thinking that maybe he want to have their own version, their own local version of internet in the local protester, because they are reaching a high peak of tension there. And they also know there is a danger or there is a risk that people might lose their internet connectivities. But as we considering, we still think it's not possible that we are just giving something to them, because you know that they are risking their life on the streets. They are facing their situation that they spend their energies, they spend their times and even monies to against something. It's not our things. It's their situations. And if we just give them something that is not complete, it's not really secured, because nobody can promise that. Even we are using SSL or other encrypted open source tools, but we still know that it's not safe for people that are risking their life for resist something. So after discussion, we write him an email back that sorry, we couldn't provide you the prototype we had. And we can only share the open source list that we using in the previous version. But really sorry that we couldn't just give you something because it might hurt you and hurt somebody who trusts these technologies. But in our position that why we building this, why we building a network, it's like we don't trust technologies. We don't trust this centralized technologies or other tools. And so is there any specific communities using this umbrella network? I think there is no, because this is, sadly, maybe we can say this is an artwork, or it's not just art, but it's still not product, it's never will be a product. So I don't know. Natalia, do you have some comments for this?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was a bit confused with the languages, but at some point I listened something that you said, and it's that nobody has achieved what we have achieved, but we want to be clear that we have not achieved a mesh network. We have created some prototypes, and the most recent one, what we do is we use repeaters of a server to increase the range. And I think that's important because we acknowledge how important it is to create this kind of networks, but also we acknowledge that it is a huge challenge for us all to create this peer-to-peer encrypted and so on. So just because I heard that, I wanted to be clear that we don't claim that we as artists have created this kind of complex technologies.
Is there other questions?
我觉得，我看一下大家有没有什么其他的问题。
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing. So, any more questions? Is it okay?
Okay, I realize there is a question in the chat because we're running out of time. The last question in the chat. So I'm going to read.
Movement, the umbrella will be used as an interconnected weapon, but it's also a physical and police weapon, so it's very likely to be damaged. What do you think of this conflict? Do you have any plans to open workshops in mainland China at all?
Yeah, I think we all know that it's not wise to hold the yellow umbrellas to just go to the street. It's easy to be targeted because it's so obvious and so outstanding. But why we choose yellow umbrellas is the metaphorical meanings of this object, that it's a daily object that it's normally covering or hiding us and protect us from like the water or from the sun. But in this project, we try to reverse it to not only protect, but also protect the communication and also maybe enhance the communications. So please don't bring this umbrella to the street. If you want to do some other portable network and in the same way, maybe mesh network or also maybe other local server, you can find other antenna that is more, I can say, more efficient, more powerful, and more, more, I don't know, it's just industrial level of the product. But the antenna of the umbrella is not a weapon and also not the things we want people to hold on the street. And another question is, do you have any plans to open workshop in mainland China? Is it possible? if so, I would like to. Yeah. Then yeah, we would like to have some conversations there for sure, because the workshop we had, now we are planning to do more, and the encounter means people exchange things and people meet. So yeah, if there is a chance, I would like to go to China and have this encounter there. Then Natalia, do you want to say something, or because this is our last questions?
Just that in the experience in the streets, like where there is an expression of life, like really not centralized, autonomous, self-organized, and so on. There is no central solution for things. And as life does, we improvise while going. So I think that's really important to know that there is no one solution.
Okay, thank you very much for this invitations. And unfortunately, Natalia and I both have to go first, and maybe see you in other panel. And if anyone has some questions, I will take a look of the Slido, and maybe I can answer in some other ways.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. OK， 好，那我们谢谢徐荣和 Natalia 的精彩。
Thank you very much.